So our last talk of the day before jumping into our GIS interactive sessions is by Rosie Campbell, and she's used to be a member of MAHSA, and now she's moved on to her new adventures. And she's going to talk to us. She worked a lot on the public engagement side of using GIS as well, and making story maps. It's very good to see you, Rosie, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for inviting me to speak about this today. So I'm going to talk a bit about mapping the narrative. So that's using digital storytelling tools for public engagement and outreach. So digital storytelling is widely used in a lot of different areas. So in libraries and schools and museums as this form of public engagement. It enables users to really share personal stories and then to produce stories about kind of novel, multiple or complementary, and sometimes at times quite contentious histories. And it can provide a really powerful platform to raise awareness of personal and cultural histories. Digital storytelling in the context of archaeology and heritage is more than just putting a map on a website. It's really a methodology that uses multimedia, so GIS things like maps, but also 3D models, audio, archival images, and video in tandem with this spatial data to transform what is often kind of dry or complex data sets that we use into more of a compelling narrative for the public audience. So GIS data is really key for digital storytelling and for archaeology. So while analyzing spatial relationships has been a key aspect of archaeological investigations since really the early years of our discipline, recent years have really witnessed a revolution in technologies that offer powerful means of discovering, documenting, and interpreting the human past. And the availability of sophistication of geospatial methods are not merely producing new data, but they're also helping us to facilitate entirely novel means of engaging with the archaeological record. So traditional GIS and other methods are often too technical for public engagement. And meanwhile, traditional methods of storytelling often lack the groundedness of geography. So the online platforms we'll be looking at today can really help bring all of these together and help bridge this gap between technical site report and the public by really allowing public audiences to engage with material in their own time and pace, but with the intentional curated story from an expert. So story maps allow us to use a really wide range of data types, as I've just noted. So I'm just going to go through some of those quickly. And it's things that you've already seen throughout these presentations we've had this morning. So using a lot of historical images of sketches and photographs, point data, lines and polygon data, but also 3D elevation models, which can allow line data and point data to also be within 3D spaces, as well as raster data as well. So in the context of a lot of archival stuff, we have all these beautiful historical maps that we've been georeferencing, and these can also be as part of the curation. So we do have three different main options for digital storytelling. And although I'll be focusing on ArcGIS story maps, I really wanted to show you the other two as well, because we do kind of stress this open source kind of options that we really want to encourage everyone to use. So ArcGIS is kind of freemium, so there's a subscription fee or it's free depending on how much you want to be able to use. But there's also these two other open source options. So first of all, Leaflet, which is a leading open source JavaScript library for mobile-friendly interactive maps. And there's actually a kind of hack that uses Leaflet and Google Sheets together to create these interactive story maps. So this is really best used for highly customizable projects where you want a specific look and feel that using a template can't really provide. And because it's open source, it's a really great for projects with limited budgets or for those who really prioritize digital preservation. So here you're using your own code, there's no subscription, it's all of your own data, and you have full control over everything. The drawback of that, of course, is that although it has great documentation, it is harder to create without the basic knowledge of coding than the more out-of-the-box options, which can be limiting. The second open source one is StoryMaps.js. It's a tool that was built by Northwestern University, and it really focuses on specific narrative arcs. So unlike ArcGIS, it focuses on more of a linear sequence of events. It's really perfect for something like the journey of an artifact. So I don't know, following a looted statue or something from its find spot or area, giving it context, and then moving it towards its final destination in the museum somewhere. There is also other options from NightLab's story map GIS. So that's also juxtapose, scene, sound site, storyline, and timeline. They're all actually separate applications, and you can do different things with them. And the benefit, of course, is that it's really lightweight, it's free, it's incredibly easy for non-developers to use. It's a drag and drop situation, but you really only have that single one template in the story map itself. So the third option is ArcGIS's story maps. It uses the scrolly telling format where the map stays in sync with the text as the user scrolls. And it's really best for comprehensive stories. So you can look at anything from the biography of an object to also really complex landscape archaeology or historical record stories. So its ability to handle really high-res satellite imagery and GIS layers is quite unmatched, though it can feel kind of corporate or rigid at times. And as I said earlier, it's freemium, so though it can be used for free, it is limited compared to the paid ArcGIS online version, though I'll say that a lot of institutions do have access to them. So we have these kind of different options that kind of go for different skill levels. So ArcGIS Story Maps is great for beginners and kind of people of all ranges. You can have something quite basic, you can do very complex things. It has a lot of high customization, although it is still template based. And it's really good for both short and long complex stories. NightLab is great for beginners as well. It's also free and open source, but the customization is very low and it's really good for linear stories, but not much complexity. Whereas Leaflet can be good for pretty much anything. It's very customizable, but it does have much more of an intermediate skill level to come into. There's also 6 different types. I'm now going to just focus on ArcGIS story maps because that's what we've primarily been using and found the best kind of work with. And there's 6 different types of content that you can actually create within story maps. So that's stories, briefings, frames, templates, collections. There's also a 6th one, but I cut this out because it's irrelevant to us because it's just basically a repeat. And generally, stories is the best options for engagement, and that's really what I'm going to be focusing on. But of course, if you get into this, feel free to play around with whatever you like. Within the story map stories, there's 2 main options for how you want to tell the story. So you have Sidecar, which is a scrolling slide-based block that has 3 layout choices, all providing these really interesting narrative tools. And as you scroll down the page, the map or image stays, so you can connect it to the text with the map or image. And then the second option is the map tour. And it allows you to plot points on a map and add media content and narrative text to those points that will display in either a side or floating panel, depending on your layout choices. And there's also 2 different types. There's the guided tour and the explorer tour. So you can either with the guided tour, force the user to kind of go along a linear path, or the explorer where the person can select the path as they choose. You can also decide if you prefer it to be more media focused or map focused. And really the great thing about stories, and maybe you noticed from some of the examples that were playing in my earlier slides, is that you aren't really limited to just one of these. You can mix and match them in any order and as much as you like. So now I really want to show you all an example of a project that was developed and run by Dr. Stefania Merlot and Dr. Carla Clem as part of a UK-US Digital Scholarship in Cultural Institutions AHSC grant between the universities of Cambridge and Arkansas. So in this project, and for both audiences in Africa and around the globe, we're really interested in promoting ancient histories, especially the depth and form of African cities into the broader public consciousness. So after conducting a review of similar digital storytelling initiatives across the Global South, we reflected on, among other things, storytelling with spatial archives, as well as on the logistical challenges with connecting audiences with varying technical competencies, computer and internet speeds, cultural understandings and language barriers, to the resources associated with digital publications. We also looked at how digital storytelling and the narrative voice could work, so on how marginalized voices and perspectives can be integrated into digital storytelling processes, which can empower communities to engage with storytelling in these self-directed generative ways that deepen connections to cultural heritage. So we then began collaboration with several museums across Africa and the US, including the National Museums of Kenya, the Field Museum in Chicago, the KwaZulu-Natal Museum in South Africa, the Museum of Archaeological Anthropology at Cambridge, the Center of Advanced Spatial Technologies, or CAST, at Arkansas, and the MAEASaM project. And this then became IDIC Africa. So IDIC Africa is a collaborative virtual space for the exploration of knowledge about Africa's history through digital storytelling. And we've curated several story maps that speak to a diverse range of themes in Africa's past and present, using objects, images, maps, and artworks, and other research material. So this is just our landing page on IDIC Africa, and it gives access to several different curated stories, all made using ArcGIS's story maps. And I'm just going to go through 3 examples with you here. So firstly is this project, this curation, which is a visual history of the great town established by the Zulu king Dingane. It's brief but intense life, and then it's afterlife in the form of pictures, monuments, traces, objects, maps, archaeological excavations, and artworks. It was put together by the KwaZulu-Natal Museum from the Republic of South Africa and the MAEASaM project. And as you can see, it uses a lot of georeference maps. It uses from the historical archives, it uses point data, it's going to use some polygon data in a little bit, and it takes you through all of this through the archive and the site itself. It would also incorporate some of the more recent archaeological excavations and these beautiful sketches as well. All of the maps are also interactive, so you can actually zoom into them, click on them, and continue to kind of add annotations and information. And the wonderful thing as well, if you want to make something very complex, as you can see, I'm just flicking to different chapters. So that allows us to kind of add a lot of different depth to the story that we can flick through. The second curation is a visual adaptation of an article that was published in The Conversation in 2021 about a cache of money cowries found among the remains of Salvento, which was a Portuguese ship wrecked off the coast of southern eastern Africa in 1554. It was also produced by the KwaZulu-Natal Museum. And as you can see, this one goes for more of a guided map tour. So it's taking us on the route that these little tiny seashells went to. It also links us with these modern photographs, the artifacts themselves, and everything to do with them in the archive. So it's really about contextualizing these tiny things and showing that a tiny object can actually have a very big story. So the third that I'd like to show you is from the Field Museum in Chicago and CAST from Arkansas. And this curation explores the history of artistic expression and new inventions in the Kingdom of Bamun. And it includes one of the only surviving examples of pre-colonial maps of Africa made by African cartographers. What's really fantastic about this story map is that it really makes the most of everything that Esri story maps can do. So you have these interactive 3D models to really engage with the user, to kind of give them this impact with artifacts. You have a lot of historical images, sketches, drawings, and this beautiful map as well. You can see on the right-hand side, they've actually embedded a small GIF that shows you how to use the story map itself, and that's always a really good idea because some people, of course, although it's relatively intuitive, we have to kind of think about who our user is going to be and how much use of technology they have with them. Again, we have this kind of interactions that are part of the story. And then here the story map starts to kind of contextualize everything into the modern day period as well, and into the Field Museum in Chicago. It also has a little embedded thing here of giving a tour of the exhibition hall. So again, just kind of adding context to everything that's happening. And this really excellent kind of ingenuitive and novel way of using the story map, which is that instead of having a map with points, they've uploaded a photograph of the archives as a raster, and then used point data to actually make it feel like you're opening the drawer. And on the left, it has what the artifact is that's inside that drawer to kind of give you information. So it does allow you, like a lot of these really interesting applications, if you think outside the box a little bit, you can do some really interesting things to engage with the public. So what I wanted to move on to now is more on the digital storytelling processes. So thinking through the foundational elements of your story is really essential for a coherent and engaging story map. Some things to consider before you begin dropping shapefiles in the software itself is to consider some fundamental questions. So who are you making this for? What is it and why? You have to also kind of think, who is your intended audience? Is it for someone of a higher education level? Is it for everyday public? And then again, we also have to really consider, are there any takeaways or calls to action? So what do you actually want this to create? Is it to spread awareness of something? Is it to teach about an unknown history? Is it to show something about the archaeological site you're working on or the people or region? And then more practically, we really have to start thinking about the actual content that you have access to. So what else do you need? What is missing from your data set that you would like? Do you want some new shapefiles of river valleys? Do you need geo-referenced maps in there? And how will you host this and where will you put it? So you have to also be really sure to consider if it's accessible, like the shapefile layers, and also if it's in the Creative Commons or if you have adequate permissions to be posting these online. And on that note, you should also make sure to consider that once you upload your story map to ArcGIS, Esri technically owns the story map, not the content itself, but the story map. So there's also this risk that Esri may stop the support for story maps and you could lose your access to it. And the only way at the moment to save your story map is by exporting it as a flattened PDF, which of course is really great for archiving, and I recommend that everyone should be doing that if they make one for their own records. But it's obviously no longer interactive or enjoyable. But if we really go back now to the development of your story map, the best way to answer this question is through a really well thought out storyboard. So one great way that we've been doing this in the IDIC Africa project is to run a Google Doc, continuous Google Doc, share it with the people that are a part of the project, and then start filling it out. So at the top here, we have the target, so we can always be going back and thinking about who it's for, and then the objectives of the story map. So for here, for example, they've got 4 main objectives. So to appreciate the use of beads as a form of communication, to showcase the geographical distribution of beads, identify uses and meanings, and demonstrate the interrelationship among museums and departments. And then we've got here just a simple table that has the title and then the introduction, the places and images, the sources and comments. And the 2 things that I would stress that are the most important here to think about is, one, it's really great to keep track of all of your sources. You need to keep them in your story map at the end for obvious reasons, and as well for the comments. So here you can see that in the doc, different users can add different comments about it, how they think it should be designed, notes on things. It's very, very useful if you have more than one person working on it, but even if it's just yourself, it kind of keeps all of your ideas in one go. And kind of finally, we've actually developed a guide for planning and creating your own story map that includes a lot of tips and also what's available. It is actually based on, as well as our own understanding of things, it's also based on a really fantastic resource that ArcGIS produced itself, which is a story map on how to make story maps, which of course I'm more than happy to share. And as well as storyboarding, this also gives a summary of ArcGIS's story maps, so how to create one and the various options that are available. Yeah, so if you would like a copy, please feel free let me know. And I can also send a tutorial. So I'm going to stop there, which is maybe 5 minutes early, actually. But I hope that it's been very useful for you. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear them. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Rosie, for this amazing work. I think when you started to share your the last story map, unlocking the treasures in the vaults. You got all the reactions from people, including me, about how useful these tools can be. And the finishing part about talking about the process and what needs to be done and the importance of Teradata was something that is very, I mean, the technical part is one side, but this kind of knowing what needs to be done. But thanks again, Rosie, for this great presentation.
Thank you.